Next time I make this, I'll put a space for you to write this. I know it's not there, and you had there wasn't much space to write it, but number one, make sure we're writing the domain and the range for both of them. Part A, if you're trying to write the domain, the domain is possible x values. So again, I think the best visual is to try and imagine squashing it down onto the x-axis. If you squash this down onto the x-axis, it looks something like that. What parts are covered there? Everything from where? From here and that way, right? There's an arrow at the end. Okay, it covers 2 all the way up, -2 all the way up. -2 is not included, right? You notice that -2 is not included. There's an open circle there. If you're writing it with words, you can say x is greater than -2, right? That's all you have to say. You can say all real numbers greater than -2 if you want. All real numbers greater than -2. As far as the y values, you got to compress it down onto the y-axis. Think about where it is on the y-axis. If you're going to, oops, that's not what I want. Okay, see what it covers that way. Some of you are mixing up the 2's and the 3's and the x values and the y values. Imagine squashing it horizontally or squashing it vertically onto one of the axes, right? Where does that start? That starts at -3 and goes up from there, right? So that's your y values. Everything greater than or equal to, not equal to because it's an open circle, everything greater than -3. This is going to be all real numbers. I'll be lazy here and put those -3, okay? If you're trying to draw a number line, I drew both of these horizontally, but you don't have to put all these tick marks when you're drawing it yourself. All you have to do is put the number it starts at. X is going to be here. You could put another number if you want. You could put 0, or you could put something else to show where it is, but it's just that way, arrow that way. You can put an X here to say it's X, and you can put a Y here to say that you're going to do Y for this one. This one is -3 and up, right? So put a -3 there. Again, maybe put a 0 there to show which direction you're going, but that's all you have to do for the number line. Okay? If you're doing interval notation and set notation, all you're doing is putting the boundaries. For this, the lower boundary is -2. What's the upper boundary here? If it keeps going. Make sure you notice it's an arrow, right? It doesn't stop at 6. If you're trying to write this with interval notation, you need 2 boundary points. You need a start and an end. The domain starts at -2. It doesn't end, so you put an infinity. It doesn't include -2, so you put a round bracket. It can never include infinity. You can't get to infinity, so you put a round bracket. For the range, it starts at -3, so you put a -3. It goes up to infinity as well, and you put round brackets. Round brackets saying it doesn't include those points. Set notation is the weird one, the way it's written. First of all, make sure you can just write the inequality as a start. For this one, you don't have to say x is between -2 and infinity. For set notation, you don't have to put the infinity. You can just say x is greater than -2. And you can just say y is greater than -3 if you want. If you want to put the fancy stuff like they do in the book, you'll see it 2 different ways. Sometimes you'll see it this way. You'll see it just written as with those weird brackets. Okay? And that one looks a little problematic, and that one's not much better. But sometimes you see them saying x is a real number such that it's greater than -2. In this textbook, they don't do that. They do it this way. They say, they tell you what you're talking about first. They tell you you're talking about x. They say x such that they give you the condition that it has to be greater than -2, and then they say, oh, by the way, it's a real number in case you didn't know that. That's set notation. This is the important part. If you can't write the other stuff, I'm not too concerned about that, but I need you to be able to read it in the textbook, all that other stuff. The condition's the important part, that part in the middle. And then so for this other one here, y is greater than -3. If you can write all this other stuff, that's great. Y so that it's greater than -3, and it also happens to be a real number. Okay? Make sure you can do that important part in the middle. If it's only one-sided, if the number line's one-sided, there's only going to be one thing necessary on your condition there, right, on your inequality. For this one, a lot of you are getting mixed up with the two numbers. You're saying it goes from, this is 5, it goes from 2 up to 5. Don't mix up the x and the y. I think the best way is to imagine, if you're doing the x, imagine squashing it down onto the x-axis there. Now, I didn't quite squash it all the way down onto the x-axis. We need another dot for that. If we're compressing this down to what does it cover there on the x-axis? What parts are covered? From 0 up to 5, right? It includes 5 and it includes 0. Even though there's an open circle up there, there is something down here, so there is something at that. Your number line's going to look like that. It's going to be everything between 0 and 5, so you can just put a 0 here, put a 5 here, closed circle for both of those, and then it covers everything in between. Right? If you're trying to, let's see if we can get this back here, maybe, if we're lucky. If you're trying to do the range, compress it the other way. Compress it on, imagine squashing it onto the y-axis. What's it going to cover? It's going to cover from 2 up to 7. Right? So your number line is going to look like that. Okay? Your number line is going to be from 2, closed circle, up to 7, open circle, because it doesn't include the 7, it does include the 2. So if you're writing that here, closed circle at 2, open circle at 7, and everything in between there. Okay, there's your number lines. If you want to write this one vertically, you can, just because it's y. Probably, I guess you should say that's y and that's x. For words, you can describe that. You can say all real numbers. If you want to here, you can say between 0 and 5. And you can just say the word inclusive to say it includes those ones. Whoops. 0 and 5 inclusive. Or you can say all real numbers greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 5. There's a lot of different ways you can describe that, as long as you describe in words somehow that set of numbers. All real numbers here. You could say between 2 and 7. You could say including 2, but not 7 if you really want to. Okay? Including 2, but not 7. Or there's lots of different ways you could word that, however you want. Okay? Interval notation. I think you'll find this pretty easy once you get the hang of it. The domain is the possible x values. It goes from 0 to 5. It includes both of them, so you put square brackets. Square brackets are the same as closed circles. It includes them. Okay? The range is between 2 and 7. It includes 2, so you put a square bracket. It doesn't include 7, so you put a round bracket. Set notation, again, is the weird thing. There's two boundaries here, so you're going to have two things here. I would put the two boundary points, and I'd put an x right in the middle, and then I'd put the symbols. It's less than 5 or equal to 5. It's greater than that. Again, if you want to put the other stuff, you can. The set notation stuff. This one is from 2 to 7. It's y. It's less than 7, greater than or equal to 2. Again, if you want to put the set notation, you can. There's a couple different ways they write it. One is x such that, and by the way, it's a real number. Or, of course, you could put it where you put, this is not how it's written in the textbook, but you could write it where it's kind of the other way around here. I personally like it this way better, where you just say, you don't have this, and you put this first, you say x is a real number such that it's between 0 and 5, and then that's it, right? If you want to do it that way, you can. If you want to do it the other way, you can. It doesn't matter to me, as long as you have the right information in there. I personally think this is better, saying it's a real number such that it's between there. but this is the way they do it in the textbook. Okay? You need to understand this before we go very much further with this. Okay? Make sure you take some time between now and next time to understand this. Don't walk out of here and then just come back next time having done nothing for this course. Okay? This section requires some practice. There's, the assignment. I mean, maybe some of you have got it just by doing the examples and the your turns in here. That's great. There's the assignment. There's questions you can, use the textbook questions, the answers in the back. However you're going to learn this, okay? Maybe some of you missed one of the classes before. I understand we haven't had this for a while, right? Spring break was in the middle there. But we kind of have to get back to this, okay? Can you make a plan in the next 4 or 5 minutes for what you're going to do between now and next time? For yourself? Don't say nothing. Got to do some kind of homework for this. We come back next time. Next time we kind of have to start working on section 6.4